Welcome, everyone. This is the APS talk session for 12:30 today. My name is Scott Tiffany. This is the Ask the Librarian APS talk session. My name is Scott Tiffany. I'm the library director here at the American Philatelic Research Library. I'm going to do a brief presentation to start, and then we're just going to throw it open to questions. If people have questions about the library, about what we have in the library, anything to do with what each of us does in the library, that would be great. There's a couple of topics that I'm going to hit at the start here, just to let you know what it is that each of us does in the library, and let you know a little bit about the library itself. So I'm Scott Tiffany, the Director of Library and Information Services. On the call as well, you can see her video, is Marion Mills. She's our Technical Services Coordinator. She's responsible for a lot of our cataloging of materials and processing materials that come into the library. She's also responsible for a lot of the input that you see on the APRL digital database that we have. She does a lot of that input. She's been working pretty recently on putting exhibits into the online platform. Also on the call is Marcia Garman. She is our reference assistant. She handles the reference questions that come into the library, particularly the ones that involve research. She's joined us within the last year. And then Sarah Barazenko is also on the call. She's our library assistant. She handles a lot of the calls that come into the library, other than the ones that come directly to Marcia or myself or one of us. But she's the person you would talk to. Sarah's responsible for a lot of different things. She does some of the simpler requests, or more basic requests, I should say, in terms of book scans and book borrowing and things like that. She also is responsible for processing auction catalogs as they come into the library. I should have also mentioned that Marcia is responsible for processing our journals as they come in. And so between all of us, we sort of do a little bit of everything. I think it's because we have sort of four full-time staff, we really sort of have to do a lot of different things. Everybody sort of can do a little bit of everything, and then they have their own duties. But for those of you who don't know about the library, we are a member slash public library, if you will. We consider ourselves the largest philatelic library in the world that has public access. You can come to the library and use materials, but only members of the APS can borrow materials from the library. But you can certainly, if you are not a member, you can contact us and you can call us and we will do requests for you. We can scan items from books or from journals. We can sort of answer your reference requests, things like that. The only thing you can't do if you're not an APS member is borrow material. We send material mostly to North American addresses. We do send obviously to the US. We do send to Canadian addresses as well. We do not send across the world. We just don't have the resources or the sort of procedure in place to sort of track that material if it goes somewhere else. With that, we have about 90,000 items in the collection. We try to keep 2 copies of everything. So 2 copies of every book, 2 copies of every stamp catalog, 2 copies of every journal issue. We also have an archives area, which Marion has been sort of working at and looking through, something that we want to sort of get more, not organized, but cataloged and sort of more readily accessible for our patrons. We fulfill requests, as I said earlier. Either a lot of what we do now, we used to do a lot of photocopying and send things out that way. We do book borrowing, we do research requests. We also do a lot of the things that we do now, we digitally scan things to sort of send out to people. We are open again. There was for a brief time at the start of the COVID pandemic that we were closed for about 2 months. We opened back up in June and we are fully functioning again. The only thing that we do not do currently is we do not have the general public coming to visit us. We miss our visitors. We get pretty busy in the summer months when people come by to visit us, but we just couldn't do it. We're sort of a half staff in the building. If you were just at the board meeting just now, we normally have 32 people in the building, in the whole APC complex. We have about 15 to 17 on a daily basis now. And in the library, we try to keep that number around 2 to 2.5, 3 people on most days. So some of us who can work from home, work from home. Those who need to come in to do their duties in the library, they come in. So that's what we've been trying to do. And going forward, we're going to sort of reassess that on a monthly basis to sort of see where we're at in terms of what the state of Pennsylvania will allow us to do and what's best for our staff in the library. With that, I've got a brief presentation that I just want to go through. I've introduced you to each person. So 4 things I want to talk about today. We have the online philatelic union catalog. That's how many of you contact us. You do a search of our catalog. You'll find that on the library page of the APS website. There's a link there for search the catalog, and you can do that. Oops, sorry. Hitting the screen there. And you can do that by searching. We're in the process right now of converting our online catalog to a new platform. For almost since its inception, we've been using InMagic Genie. It's now a legacy platform, a platform that we have to move away from. And so now that we're upgrading that to a platform by the same company called Lucidia, and the new platform will be Genie Plus. Marion is sort of spearheading a lot of that transition. She's been working with our vendor, Lucidia. We've been working in the most recent months on sort of more back-end things that we'll be working with as librarians in terms of populating the database, in terms of organizing, cataloging material in the new catalog. We're sort of slowly going to move towards what would be the front end of the catalog, which would be moving towards how things are going to display, how you're going to be able to search for things, how you're going to be able to print things, download things from the catalog, and that's still to come in the months ahead. We were hoping to have a rollout for the new catalog sometime in the summer, but Lucidia has offered us the opportunity to sort of work through this process as we have time. They're very open-ended about, they want to make sure that when we eventually sort of roll the product out for our members, that it's exactly the way we want it. So we've been working very closely with them, sort of tweaking what we like and what we don't like about the data, about the catalog, and sort of moving forward on that. Next, I'll talk about APL Digital, which is, some of you may be aware of, is our digital collections database. We currently have it open to anybody. You don't have to be a member of the APS to access that. If you go to the library webpage on the APS website, scroll down to the right side of the page, there's a user ID and a password there that you can use. We've had it open now for about 3 months, and the response has been really overwhelming. Normally, it's a member benefit, and one day we will be closing it back up for members only. But during this time, have a look. If you're not an APS member, have a look. See what you like, don't you like. We like to hear back from people who use the database to sort of see what they like about it, what they don't like about it. And certainly take a look at it. And if you think it's something that you would like to have on a more regular basis, then we would love to have you as an APS member. Next, I'll talk about the Adopt a Book program, which is a donor program. With any digital project, it can be very expensive. You're looking at things like server space. You're looking at things like just physically scanning documents. That takes time. We're fortunate that we have digital interns on a periodic basis that help us do our scanning. And so, but they have to be, some of those will do it as a volunteer, but more and more you have to sort of pay someone to sort of do that. We're looking into options of, looking at local high schools and other sort of agencies like that, employment agencies, that we can employ someone to sort of do our scanning for us. We try to do what we can in-house. We're very fortunate in that we have 3 scanners in the library. I'm sure some of you have come to visit us, you've seen those. There's 2 of them for public use, or 3 of them for public use. And we have 1 large overhead scanner that's for public use as well. And then we have 1 for staff only use in the back of the library. Finally, I'll talk about the Postal History Symposium, which is coming up in October. It's going to be virtual, just like we're at this virtual stamp show. So let me sort of move forward here. So the online union catalog, as I mentioned, we're in the process of transitioning that from the legacy platform in InMagic Genie Plus. The vendor we're using is Lucidia. They've been very supportive in this process, very helpful. And we're moving it towards a Genie Plus platform. And I'll turn it over to, as I say, the timeline for the transition was to be sometime this summer, but now it's looking more towards the fall. And I'll turn it over to Marion if she can comment a little bit about the process. She's been sort of our leader on this project, and if she has any sort of things she wants to add.
Okay, so Scott mentioned most of the things about Genie Plus, but I just did want to mention that what this is going to be mean primarily for you as an APS user or a patron of the library is that it's going to, the front end of the catalog is going to end up looking and acting very different from what you're used to and what it looks like right now. So there's going to be quite a few additional features. The searching is going to be completely different. We think much better. We've tested it out and we like it quite a bit. So we think you'll like it as well. And there's going to be some customization options and hopefully some better options for finding electronic resources and highlighting resources that are available online. So those are some of the things that we're really excited about. We're also going to be changing up how our archival collections look in the catalog, which I'm very excited about. So that's just another thing about GD Plus. There's just going to be a lot of change in what it looks like. So right now we're in the middle of customizing our serials, so our journals and how we check those in, and we're working through all the different back-end steps. And then after that, as Scott said, we'll move over to working on the public-facing side. And so once we have that complete, we'll have a little bit of a better idea of exactly what you will be able to expect as a library patron once we have all those features set up. And then hopefully after that, we'll be able to set up some sort of chat or tutorial of some sort and show you everything that you can expect. So you can look for that. Hopefully in early fall, we'll see how it goes. It's sometimes hard to communicate from a distance and have all the meetings we like to have to talk about it. So, you know, it's an ongoing process, but it's something we're very excited about.
Thank you, Marion. So what I would say as well, and Marion touched on it, is that we will have you to have the opportunity to see it, to be able to sort of work with it. We do plan on having tutorials. I think now in this virtual world, it's a good opportunity to use things like Zoom or GoToMeeting to sort of have training sessions, if you will, with the new platform. And so we will certainly put out tutorials and things of that nature to sort of help you as you transition to this new platform. As Marion says, it's going to look very different. We're very excited about it because we think it searches better, it displays better, it has a lot more of the things that we were hoping to have with the current platform, but it allows us so many more options in terms of how you're going to be able to search for material in the library and how you're going to be able to see and view and download and search. It's a really exciting platform. We're really happy how it's turned out and how it's going to look going forward. So look forward to those sessions, those training sessions, and those virtual sort of events that we'll have as we get closer to sort of rolling this out on a permanent basis. So next I want to talk a little about APRL Digital. As I mentioned, for the last 3 months, we've had this open to the public for people to look at. These are just some of the numbers of things that are in there. It's mostly a journals database right now. And I'm still hearing back from societies and clubs about having their journals in the database. And I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. Marion's 45 is a low number for exhibits. I know she's put more in there than I have there. I think I made this slide a while ago. The books we have in there, there are 6. We're always looking for ideas and suggestions from people who use the database or members or non-members about books you'd like to see in there. Now, we do have to be concerned with things like copyright. We can't just put something that came out last week. We do have to sort of get permissions for books like that. So the 6 books that we do have are books that sort of are past copyright. There is no copyright on them, and they're there. And that's something we'd really like to ramp up in the months and the years ahead to sort of really put more books into the database. I heard back from a board member during the joint APS and APRL board And there's a couple of books that he's offering that their society publishes that he would love to have in the database. So that's pretty exciting to have that as well. The reference collection that we have, this was just sort of a test. We had 49 album pages. There's 2 countries there, and these are just test pages from the advertising department that we scanned in there. That was just sort of to see how this would sort of work with things like that. We have 2 maps in there. That's also something we would like to explore and sort of populate more. The American Book Note Company files is something I would really like to sort of pursue. It's going to take a monumental task. I think a rough guess of the number of pages we have would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 pages. It's quite a number of pages. A lot of the pages from the American Banknote Company files are that thin onion paper, if you remember that. It's almost transparent. And we have mostly South America. We don't have the communications with the US. I believe that went to the National Postal Museum. So any South American stamps that were issued or designed or produced by the American Banknote Company, we do have those files. A lot of the files contain correspondence between, say, the designer, between the country, back and forth about how many stamps they're going to issue. Is the design correct? Do you like the design? It's a great sort of historical record, if you will, of how some of the South American stamps came into being. And finally, we have 3 movies. These are US, when it was called the Post Office Department films that came out in, I think most of them are from the 1950s. So they're black and white. They're mostly promotional pieces about, hey, you should use this particular service in the postal service, or what about sort of mailing? I think one of them is about Christmas mailing and how that sort of happens when you put a letter in the mailbox and how it makes its way to the person you're sending it to. They're kind of an interesting look at how the service was done, but it does give a lot of behind the scenes look of how the Postal Service works, even in the age before we had all this digital technology. So here, as I mentioned about clubs and organizations, I'm really looking to reach out, and I'm glad we have so many people on this session. I'm really looking to reach out to various clubs, societies, and organizations that would like their journal or their newsletter or whatever publication they put it as part of the digital collection. Here are some of the journals or societies that have contacted me. These are documents, they either send me scans of these full runs of these journals or newsletters, or they have given us permission to scan them ourselves. So the ones you see in the top paragraph there, those are all that we're ready to go. We either have the scans or we have to sort of go about scanning these, but we've been given permissions to put these up in the database. So we have about 15 of them there. The ones at the bottom there are ones that I'm currently still in discussion with in terms of how do we go about, do they want to scan the documents? Do we want to scan the documents? And we're sort of going back and forth on that. The ones I'm really excited about in the top paragraph there, we have things like the Third Reich Study Group Bulletin, the Danzig Report, and the Post-World War II German Stamps Bulletin. Some of these are in German. So it's going to be an interesting task to sort of see how these will be searchable when some of their content is in German. So we have to start exploring how we can search some of this material in another language. But some of the ones that have recently come to us are like the United Nations Philatelists and the First Issue Collectors Club. And we're really excited about all of these. The other one that I'm really looking forward to, it's going to be a monumental task, is the last one there, the Air Post Journal. So if you do have a club or an organization and you're interested in having it as part of our digital collections database, you can contact me, either my personal email, stiffney@stamps.org, but the easiest one would be library@stamps.org, and you can contact me and let me know if you're interested in being part of this database. The next thing I want to talk about, as I'm sure you all know, digital projects aren't cheap. We do our best with what we have in-house. As I say, we already have the scanners. We already have, sometimes we have volunteers, sometimes we have money to hire people to sort of help us with the scanning and uploading. But as I'm sure Marion will attest, when I first started this project, this was back when Tara Murray was the library director, we thought the easiest part of the job would be just sort of scanning the documents. Well, it's proven to be that once you have the scans, it also takes quite a bit of a task to sort of upload these, have them searchable, have them properly sort of indexed in the database so that they can be full text searchable. That becomes it almost takes as much time as sort of scanning the documents in the first place. So there's a lot of labor intensive work with it. And with that, and there's storage space, and then there's people that we would like to hire every now and again. So it does cost. And if you go to that website or that address, Adopt a Book, and you can help us with that project. What the campaign is that if you donate, there are different levels you can donate to Adopt a Book. And what we will do as part of your donation, you can pick a book in our library, not to have that scanned, but to pick a book in the library that's a favorite book of yours, a book that you used when you were sort of getting into the hobby, or your go-to book that you like. Find it in the library collection, and we will put a book plate in that book to say, this person donated as part of the Adopt the Book program to help us with our digital projects. And that'll be a nice keepsake. We'll take a picture of the book for you. Even if you've come to visit us, we'll take a picture of you with the book if you like. But it's just a way to sort of give back to you for helping us with some of our financial needs as we go forward. This isn't meant really as sort of a one-time sort of general, here's the sum of money that'll sort of help us forever with digital projects. Digital projects are an ongoing thing. It's just meant to be a general fund that we have at our disposal that we can use to sort of, when we do need sort of things like more storage space, or we need something involving digitization. And this allows us to expand the scope of our digital materials. Next, I'd like to talk about the Postal History Symposium. Just like the virtual stamp show, we had originally planned to have the Great American Stamp Show in Hartford, Connecticut, as many of you know. But we had to very quickly decide that we just couldn't do that. It wasn't safe for our members and for the people that would be coming there. And so we had to turn that into a virtual show, as you're now experiencing. The same thing happened with the Postal History Symposium. This is a biennial event that happens as a joint effort between the American Philatelic Research Library and the National Postal Museum. So it happens every other year. Every other year, we either have it at the Postal Museum in Washington, or we have it here at the American Philatelic Center. And because of, as the time went along, we got to a point in sort of in mid-July that we just couldn't reasonably have people here to host it here. And so we had to turn it into a virtual show, and we will be doing that. So we changed the date slightly. It was supposed to be from the 29th to the 30th, and now, or the 31st, I should say. And now we've turned it into a Monday to Friday, October 26th to the 30th. We would love to have all of you attend. It's free, there's no charge for it. You will have to register for it. The website is not up to register yet, but that is something I will get up in the early part of this, either the late August or the early part of the next month. And you can go up there and sort of see all the programs that we will be having. We have about 16 speakers that will be talking about various aspects of postal history in the classic era. Our theme for this year was Postal Innovation of the Classic Era, Evolution Leading to Modernization. And so we have a number of speakers. One of the sort of real treats for this year's Postal History Symposium is that our co-sponsor, the American Philatelic Classic Society, has a number of members of their society that will be some of our speakers. So you'll get to see some of their talks about postal history and postal innovation that led to modernization. We'll also have philatelic exhibits. Here are some of the speakers that we'll be having and some of the talks that they will be talking about. We have Scott Treppold, who's the president of Robert Siegel Auctions. He will be our keynote speaker, and we'll be talking about postal innovation of that time. But this is just to give you an idea. These are not all of our speakers, these are some of them. So if you do have a chance to sort of join us, we would love to have you. I think the initial idea right now, we have, as I say, about 16 speakers. So we're gonna have about 3 of them a day. We might have the odd day where we have 4 speakers. But it'll be very similar to what we're doing during the virtual stamp show. We'll also have postal exhibits there. The U.S. Philatelic Classic Society is hosting the exhibits. So there'll be a link on the page in the APS site to sort of click on the link, and then you can go to the U.S. Philatelic Classic website, And there you will see, much like you do at this stamp show, you'll be able to view virtual exhibits. Some of them are one of a kind. They've promised some that will be special exhibits that are just for the symposium. And that's the link right now for the Postal History Symposium page that we have right now. If you go to the APS website, you find the library page, you'll see the link for the Postal History Symposium on the right-hand side of the page. Our future, just in the library in general, is we want to continue to increase our virtual presence. I think something like this, we've had stamp chats where Marion and I have sort of done stamp chats to ask the librarians questions, give you updates about the library. But I think we want to increase that going forward. I think we're in that sort of world now where we have to allow for people who can't always make it to the APC or the library to sort of reach out to them. And so we're going to do more of that in the library. I mentioned about APRL Digital and increasing our digital resources going forward. I think the new library platform that Marion talked about has that opportunity as well. We can sort of add a few more digital resources into that as well. So we're really looking forward to that. And then we'd like to have more virtual events like this, as I say, the symposium, speaker series. I've been talking with Scott English about possibly having a librarians speaker series where you can hear from librarians at other libraries around the world about what they're doing in their libraries and having them sort of promote their libraries. So with that, I'm going to open it up. You can either put your questions in the chat box below, or you can, I will stop sharing my screen. Or you can just open up your mic if you want to do that. And we can answer any questions you might have.
Scott, this is Dale Egan.
Yes.
I have two comments. One, in regards to maps.
Okay.
I have my own very extensive database. In my map area, there's a tremendous amount of maps, including old postal route maps that are not copyrighted. They're on the David Rumsey collection at Stanford University.
Okay.
And you can download these in a number of resolutions. I always get the highest resolution, and it takes a few minutes. But there's many, many maps there that philatelists would be interested in. People who are interested in state postal history, they'll be interested in maps other than the postal route maps. There's another fabulous source on the East Coast, and off the top of my head, I forget the name of that library, but they also have a large amount of really pertinent digitized maps, and you can download them over the internet. The second comment I have, and then I'll be quiet, is that about 10, 12 years ago, the Western Philatelic Library expressed an interest in digitizing some materials. I made a very detailed technical proposal, cost, training, everything, ongoing renewables such as data storage and the server. But in that time frame, they were running into the issue of having to possibly relocate, which caused a lot of issues. They finally did relocate, but then there's been ongoing financial issues. But I was always very disappointed because they have a large, very extensive serial collection. And it had been just wonderful to start 10 years ago. I mean, this included an automatic book scanner. And it's just such a shame it never took place because so much progress could have been made in these 10 years. But a suggestion I have, I mean, they have a new board of directors, and I have been making some discussions with them, but in the foreseeable future, I don't see anything changing there. But the suggestion is if these numbers don't scare people, I mean, you can get a good automated book scanner for about 50K. You know, there's you need to train volunteers to operate it, but it is automatic. I mean, you put a book on there and it changes the pages. You do have renewables, I mean, data storage, but that could probably be worked out with APS. But my suggestion is that in some of these other philatelic libraries in the US or maybe even overseas, that some coordinated effort where you could offload some of this digitization to these other libraries. So I get, those are my 2 comments or suggestions.
Oh, no, valid both. I will, after hearing what you had to say, I will reach out to the Western Philatelic Library, see if there's something we can sort of work out there. But also that is sort of the question all the time when you get into digitization, is trying to make best use of the resources you have. And that includes the people that you have. And that if some of these other libraries, I don't want to duplicate work that's already been done. So part of the issue when you start getting into a full-scale digital project is not doing something that's already been done or something that's already available. And so it's just a matter of sort of coordinating with our libraries. We keep a fairly regular contact with our other philatelic libraries, at least here in the US and in Canada, and the Royal in London. And that's something that we're going to sort of continue going forward. I know with Frank Walton at the Royal in London, we want to sort of continue a closer relationship because he has a lot of contacts with European philatelic libraries. So, but you're exactly right. It does take a coordinated effort. Sometimes, as I say, I don't like duplicating work that's already been done, but I do want to sort of work towards, I know the APL Digital, for example, is sort of something we've been working on here at the American Philatelic Research Library. But long term, I want to make that sort of a database that's available to sort of any library that sort of requests it as they're putting data into it too. I know, for example, say the Vincent Gray Green up in Toronto has a very extensive collection of digital copies of the Canadian Postmaster General reports, which would be great to have as a shared resource for our members too, who are Canadian collectors. So we're always working with the other libraries to try and sort of make that happen. And we hope that going forward, we can coordinate more of that.
Yeah, I think one comment there is, I mean, there is, if you could convince some of these libraries to make the capital investment in a book scanner, most of the rest of it, you know, you could be the prime server, coordinate the efforts, but, you know, they would actually have the resources in their library to start taking on some journal or some books. And so if there was a number of libraries around the world willing to do this, then, you know, you've distributed the effort over a large number of sources, and it would accumulate at APRL.
Sure, sure. A question I got from in the chat box is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of having our journal in the APRL digital database? Advantages would be exposure. We can certainly put things like links to your society page to say, hey, if you like this journal, you can sort of, here's a website where you can join their society. I know a lot of a lot of societies and organizations use their journals as a benefit of membership, as they should. What we can offer them is that we already do this for a couple of the journals that are in the database. We put up what are called walls, so that a virtual wall. Say, for example, you only want the most recent 5 years available to just your members of your club or organization. We can set that up so that the wall sort of moves for the most recent 5 years or the most recent 2 years, so that only your members get to see those most recent journals issues. So that's a possible way around it. We do understand that that is used as a member benefit for people joining these clubs and organizations. But what I would say is a large advantage for it is its exposure. So people are getting exposed to your journal, and that journal is going to have in it probably some application form that talks about society, the reason why we'd like you to join your group or organization. So, but we certainly understand. I know some organizations have reached out and are a little sort of reticent to sort of share it. But I think more and more we're in a digital age. We're sort of sharing information all the time. And to sort of, the more exposure you can get for your club or organization, the better. And we're just offering the digital database as one of those opportunities to share information about your club or organization.
Well, regarding justification for digitization, I can give you a real life empirical experience of mine. There was a specific topic I was working on and looking and researching, and, you know, was working back in those days, but over a period of 10 years, you know, I slowly but surely accumulating material. One journal became available digitized, and using the a search function of the Adobe PDF reader, in 10 minutes, I got 10 times the amount of information than I had in the previous 10 years. So, I mean, from a pragmatic standpoint, you can't argue with the value of that. 10 minutes versus.
And that is the world we're in. I mean, I know when people physically come to the library, it's sort of split. I don't think it's a 50-50 thing, but a lot of people like doing their own research. And now that we're in sort of an age where you can access things like Dale is mentioning, you know, you can do your own research at home. You can sort of sit wherever you are in your library at home and sort of find things. And I think as the library, as we move forward here, we have to sort of continue on that. There's no going back now. I mean, we love having people come visit us, and we love people coming here and sort of doing their research here with us. But if we can sort of reach out to more and more people with the resources that we have, and for us, we use it as a member benefit, but there are certainly things that you, as I mentioned at the top of this session, you can contact us at any time. We can certainly help you with the research that you need from us, and we can do that. But the more that you can sort of just reach out yourself and either explore the databases that Dale has been talking about or the APRL Digital, the better. I don't know how many of you went to the Global Philatelic Library session that Frank Walton did yesterday, but just an incredible resource when you have things like the Crawford Library and how much digitization they've done of that. I think we're in that world now, and it's the more we can offer here at the APRL, the better, I think, for our members and for just researchers. I sort of mentioned earlier that we have the digital database open to anyone right now. And I've heard yesterday from a librarian from Belgium who has been using it, and she's thrilled. I mean, she could answer a question for one of her patrons. And so that goes a long way. Maybe we get a member out of that. So that's kind of exciting. So it's really a worldwide community now, and it's sort of, we want to keep going forward with that. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Do you have an open platform for researchers where they, for example, when you have a group of researchers studying, let's say, earliest use of postage stamps, of the old postage stamps, that they have a central place where they can put in their data, and where it is also accessible for reading for others so that they can also contribute if they find something?
We do not currently have something like that, but I have sort of thought about something like that. I think that would be a great resource. I've talked with a good friend of mine who works at Scott Publishing, the Scott Catalog, who's interested in something like that. I would love to have that kind of resource sharing going on between people of similar research interests and things like that. It's really not something that we have now, but it's certainly something that we'd certainly like to use. A lot of what we use that's sort of similar to that is we use a lot of our expertisers that are in the expertising department here as sort of resources. They certainly have a lot of connections in the philatelic community with particular areas of interest, whether it be a particular country or a particular area of collecting. But I love that idea. I think it's a great idea. I think that's something that we should explore to sort of, I mean, one of the things when I started here in the library that the person who trained me when I was on the reference desk said is that some of your best resources are just people. The books are great and everything that's in the library, but some of the best resources you have are just reaching out to people who collect in this area or who are specialists in this area. Because sometimes those people contacting you, they're they probably know more than you may find in a book readily. So I definitely would love to explore something like that. It's a great idea.
Scott, I have a question.
Sure.
Michelle Bresso here. Good morning from California.
Oh, good morning.
As a college professor, I'm used to doing research, and I really want to commend you for your outreach into the digital aspect of research to make this truly accessible for those of us who are members and people around the world. My question is about your plans to build in the knowledge and understanding of how to use resources for newcomers to the library, as well as newcomers to the new technological processes you'll use. If you could expound a bit on your plans for that, and perhaps a timeline for things like tutorials and a variety of things. I'm teaching everything on Zoom now, so you know, the aspect of even this conference being offered virtually has made it so accessible. I am thrilled to be able to attend this, the Postal Symposium and History Symposium and other things. This is the wave of the future for us as an organization. So I'd love to know more about your plans in that arena.
Sure, great question, and thanks for attending. Yes, there's no question. As I said earlier, there's no going back now. This is the way to sort of reach out to not only our members, but people who want to use the library and use the resources that we have. And I do want to start, I think on our site now we have a few old YouTube videos, how to use our resources, but that was really back when someone would physically come to the library and use the resources. We have so many tools now that you don't physically have to come. We love having people come visit us, but we know that's not always possible. So in terms of a timeline going forward, I think once this stamp show is done, and I'm also working pretty heavily on the Postal History Symposium, I've found a lot through this process of sort of working through the stamp show. It's given me a lot of great ideas about what I want to do going forward in terms of reaching out as part of the library and sort of getting to our members, setting up tutorials, maybe even setting up one-on-one tutorials with people, having times available for people to sort of just contact us on a Zoom call that we can sort of set up. In terms of tutorials going forward, I think our big projects right now is what Marion sort of talked about with the catalog. We're certainly going to be doing those as we get closer to that rolling out, and have tutorials and have sessions. I think my initial thoughts are we're just going to have open sessions where people can come in. We may limit the number of people that we have in these sessions so that we can do a lot of one-on-one with the new catalog. I definitely want to do that with the various resources we have, like APL Digital. I want to walk people through that. When we rolled that out, we kind of rolled that, we sort of did it the opposite way, and I take part responsibility with that. We rolled it out to people, but we didn't train them how to use it or show them how they can use it to their best advantage. So I want to do more of that. We're sort of moving towards the platform by the end of this week will be completely responsive. So for the digital database. And so once I'm sort of through with my duties with the virtual stamp show and I'm getting through the symposium duties, we definitely want to do that. I think we want to sort of tell people more obviously about what we have in the collection. But I think now with people working, doing a lot of their research remotely as you're doing in teaching, we want to do more of that. We want to reach out and have people be able to sort of in the comfort of their own home, be able to talk to a librarian in the library. One of the things I've always thought would be interesting, I know some of the universities around us do this. My wife does this at the local university here. They do virtual reference when you can sort of, there's a time in the day where you can sort of face-to-face talk with a librarian and they can walk you through research you need. I don't know if we have the resources to do that in terms of people and hours and things like that, but I would love to have, say, like reference hours or something like that, where somebody can contact us in an hour. And we might have to limit it in terms of if we get too many people in one session. But I would love to do more of that. It's a great way to sort of get people comfortable with using the resources, comfortable with using the library. And it's just a great way to reach out. So yeah, I totally agree. This is a whole new age now, and we're not going to go back. We certainly want to sort of push the envelope and continue to do more of this. So great question. Thank you.
Thank you. Excited to use your services even more.
Super. Good to hear. Anyone else? Some of the questions in the chat box are about these programs. All of these programs at the Virtual Stamp Show are being recorded. This one is as well. And they will be made available at a certain point. We don't have an actual sort of place where they're going to be. A lot of them will probably be on the APS YouTube channel. So if you want to subscribe to that, you'll see when they're uploaded. I do want to sort of have a certain amount of those. Marion and I have talked about this, about revamping the library webpage. And one of the things I'd like to have on the library page are some of these sessions that took place. Something like the Global Philatelic Library session that Frank did the other day. I'd love to have that on the library page as a resource for people to consult. So, and as we do more of these tutorials, as we have just been talking about, I'd love to have them stored there so that people can just go to our library page and here's a tutorial about how to use the library catalog, or here's a tutorial about how to use the digital database. So things like that are something we're looking at going forward. We're really excited. I know Marion is too, and the rest of us in the library, Marcia and Sarah, are really excited about what's happening in the future here for the library. So it's a great time. It was really interesting to do, be part of the process as part of the Virtual Stamp Show too. So we're learning as we go. Person asked, will the Postal History Symposium be recorded? Yes, those sessions will be recorded as well. So if you can't make it for that week of October 26th to the 30th, we will record those sessions. Some of the speakers we may even have pre-recorded, so we will just roll their presentation, but they will be there in person to answer any questions, much like you've seen with these sessions as well. So yes, that will be recorded as well. So we will have that available down the road as well if you miss those sessions. Anyone else have any questions or comments? We have another. Sorry, go ahead.
I put a question in on the chat, but let me ask it here since you're available. I was the one that asked about a society perhaps putting its journals on the APS website rather than on their own website. Mm-hmm. If a society does that, are those journals fully searchable, which would be the main thing we would be interested in for people who are interested in our topic, being able to look up some specific element of that topic and be able to immediately find it?
Sure, yeah, I should have mentioned that. It's a fully searchable PDF database so that you can go to a document and you can just type in a search at the top of the page. There's also options for an advanced search if you know a particular term or author or topic. It is fully searchable text, yes. And we would, if we were to sort of include your journal, we would scan the document so that it is a fully searchable document. I mean, that's what sort of, in many ways, makes the scanning and the uploading process a little longer, because when you scan a document and you want to make it fully searchable, yes, it scans that image, but it's also creating a file behind that image that allows you to sort of search all the terms on that page. And so that, in terms of the upload process, is sometimes what can take some time.
Many of ours are already digitized.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
But I guess my question is, you said something about going to one document. Is it possible for an APS customer to go to the journals and search all of them at one time?
Correct, yes. So you can search the whole database if you want.
Yeah.
You can select certain journals that you want to search, and search only those journals. So either option is available.
Okay, thank you.
Scott?
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm just curious, I'd asked this before, I think, but it wasn't quite clear. You mentioned funding of the digitalization process, and you said that people can adopt a book, as it were. And it sounded like really the funds would go into a general fund, a discretionary fund, some of which may be used for digitalization or whatever. Do you have any program set up strictly for the digital process, fundraising for that development, if you will, so that you can get the funds you need to really move on this full steam, as opposed to piecemeal? Or is that even possible? I don't know.
That is something I'm exploring with Scott English, our executive director. So the Adopt a Book program was something that we started just when we sort of gone through this process with the pandemic, and it was just meant as an introductory sort of funding resource. But once in the coming months, I'm going to sit down with Scott and explore sort of a more large scale campaign, if you will, for reaching out to people to say, okay, we've got this ball rolling. Now we'd like to keep it going and really expand this. And so then we will be reaching out to members and organizations if they'd be interested in helping us with that. What we've done sometimes with individual clubs and societies, like some of the early ones that we did, like the Collectors Club of New York, for example, they gave us money to help us digitize their journal. So we did it on a organization, club by club basis. But we don't want to sort of, some of these clubs are very small. They don't have a lot of funds to sort of help us with that. So what the idea behind the Adopt a Book program, and if we go really large scale, is that they don't have to help us with the funding. They can certainly contribute if they like, but we want to be able to have a resource that we can go to say, yes, we can digitize your journal and we can take care of that for you. And if you want to contribute to this, that's great, but we have enough resources to do it ourselves. That's the goal. But that is something I will sit down with Scott English and discuss.
Applying for grants and that sort of thing.
Correct, yes. Yeah.
Great. Another very quick question. I put this in the chat. Are there any must digitalized books that are sitting there on the table that you're like, wow, we don't really have the resources at the moment, whether they be human capital or financial, but we'd really like to get these on board?
I walk through our closed stacks section of the library every now and again, particularly our rare book section, and there are just so many I see that I would love to have in digital form, particularly with our rare books, because the reason they're in our rare book section is they're fragile. They obviously can't be borrowed or taken from the library. Many of them are past copyright. We would love to that's where I would start. I would start in our rare books room. Yeah. We have some one-of-a-kind materials in there that I would like to get digitized so that, because right now to have access to that, you physically have to come to the library and we will sort of lay it out for you. But even some of those we can't touch. They're so fragile. That would be my first.
The question, how does one scan those if you can't really break open the spines and that sort of thing?
Yeah, that may be something that we don't do in-house. I know there are a lot of companies that do this professionally that know how to handle books that are very fragile. And I think if we get to that point for the rare books, I would do that. I would probably opt for that option.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Does this mean that you're looking now at scanning books from before 1900s because they are copyright free?
Yes, yes. We always have to be careful. Sometimes that copyright has been passed down through depends on how a copyright lawyer would look at that. But those are the ones I'm looking at. Yes, those would be the ones I would be interested in doing. I know I'll put in a plug here for the National Postal Museum. They do a lot of that. They select a book, I think once every 2 months to digitize, and they do that and have them up there. So they've been doing that, and I'd be interested. I'm going to talk with Susan Smith there and Basil Wilder, who's the librarian there, and sort of look into maybe pooling our resources on something like that. So, yeah, those are definitely the books I would be looking to. My biggest I mentioned the American Banknote Company files. They're completely free of copyright. And I would love to get those scanned. That's a large scale project. As I say, there's many, many, many pages. It's that really thin paper that they used back then.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do your own American philatelists,
Yes.
your own
Oh,
copyright.
the philatelist is up there. It's completely up there.
Okay. From which, from 1870 and 1890?
From volume 1, issue 1. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we have a number of different, I should have put a list up there of the ones that are in there, but it's there, yeah. The Collectors Club Philatelist is there. The Postal History Journal is there. There's a few others off the top.
That's a good source for me. I'm looking at stamp dealers in Nassau Street, and they have advertising in those publications.
Yeah, the Congress books are up there as well. We have an agreement with them.
Okay.
They keep the most recent couple of years. We don't put those up, but we do have the right back from the first Congress book to the I think it's the last 2 or 3 years. They prefer to keep themselves, not put up digitally. I think we'll end the session there. I want to thank everyone who attended. It was a great session, a lot of great questions. I'll keep an eye on sort of the chat box for a little while after this, just to sort of write down any questions further questions you may have. What I will say, if you do have any questions for me after the session or any of us in the library, you can send those really easy email address, library@stamps.org, and that will get to us and we can answer those for you. One thing I've got to add for our society, during the stamp show, we welcome all collectors to join the APS. We have a really great offer going on right now. If you go to stamps.org/join, enter the code VSS2020, Virtual Stamp Show 2020. Your membership application, you'll receive 16 months of the journal. So we're including the rest of this year and all of next year. And we'd love to have you join as a member. Some of the things we talked about today are a benefit of membership. We do have the digital database open right now, but eventually we'll close it back up just for members only. So thanks everyone for joining me and have a great rest of the Virtual Stamp Show. Take care. Bye-bye.
Wonderful session. Thanks so much. Great.
Thank you, Scott.
Take care.
You too. Be well.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes, Dale?
Yes.
Good.